You're listening to AchieveRadio.com, the positive side of broadcasting.
Across the realms and around the world, welcome to Outside the Box. Tonight, your host and vessel of spirit is Nancy Zilversmit. We hope that you will learn to have the strength and courage to step outside the box and dwell with spirit, and to leave the old beliefs that hold you down behind you and rediscover your spirituality in new ways. Hello, it is July 22nd, 2015, and this show is brought to you by www.sanctuaryofsacredspace.com. Today I will take call-ins, in-quicks, questions subject to the subject matter only. Subject matter is stop taking it personally. It's how we take comments and criticism really personal when it's actually, it's not really about us. Unless it's a direct attack, which we're going to talk about that as well. So with that, I do have some stories that were given to me by the Facebook people dealing with this subject matter, and I also have a dream. So we'll get to their stories later, or in the middle of everything, depending if the subject that I'm talking on at that time correlates to what they've written me. But I also did have a dream this week, and it was kind of a precursor as to getting the subject matter as to what today was going to be about. The dream was that there are two people. They're in opposite beds, and in between these people, they're sleeping in their beds. They're in their own dream worlds. In between these people is this very ugly snake, and this snake has like things crawling inside it. You can see the skin move as these things are crawling in this thing. And I'm looking at these two people. I know who they are. They're usually in conflict with each other. And I walk up to this snake, and it strikes out at me because these two people are in conflict. So this snake is the product of their conflict. And it strikes out at me, and what I do, it tries to bite me, and it does get a hold of my hand. I take a knife, and I keep stabbing this thing till it's dead. And basically, when it's dead, I no longer have to deal with either of these people or their opinions or anything else. So from that is the precursor of stop taking it personally, because if you take it personally, people can cause you harm. Okay, so figuring out where to put papers here, because I always, every week, have a whole line of paperwork of things that I've accumulated or written on or scratched notes on. So when you take it personally, when you stop taking it personally, what does it do? Well, when you stop taking things personally, it stops people from justifying their opinion. It stops them from blaming. It stops them from defending. And this could be you. This could be another person. It could be a group of people. It depends on what the situation is when people are projecting on you, or you're projecting on somebody else. So it could cause conflict. It causes anger. It causes envy. It causes jealousy. And these are a lot of things that, if you take things personally, this is what the basis of the root of everything is coming out of. And being to the fact that humans are social beings, we define who we are, and we define our relationships by our opinions, and we interact with different people every day, or maybe even the same people. Sometimes that can be even worse. Sometimes it could be in intimate relationships. Sometimes it can be strangers on the street. So these people, they color our interactions. They color our everyday life. It may be people that we get along well with in day-to-day life, and then something just comes out of us, and it's then you have to stop and think, what did you just say? What did you just say? Or they may question you, what did you just say, and why did you say that? Or they may not question you at all. They'll suddenly just get on the defensive. It's like there's this ad that I see. I've seen it on television. I've seen it in the movie theaters as well as a precursor to previews. And it's in a peanut factory. And there's this row of people that are working in the peanut factory and making peanut butter. And the boss comes in and he sees that things are backing up, things are falling over, and he's going, "Who's to blame for this? Who's to blame for this?" And the workers point over at this person that's standing on the conveyor belt, and it's represented by a goat that's in one of the peanut butters eating the peanut butter, and the manager supervisor he calls out the guy's name, and the guy as a goat just lets out this noise, and it's very funny because then we don't know what the goat said. We don't know what the insult was. We don't know what was said. But the people that are working on the line, one of them takes her glasses off and she said, "Oh no, you just did not say that." And the others are trying to stop her from getting really defensive about it. Anyway, the boss goes after this person, and the person just tries to walk away from it, still shouting its little insults in a scream language. So this is what happens with people when they get into conflict about things. They try to blame others. Somebody, it may be their responsibility, but they're not going to take it, so they're going to insult somebody else, and somebody has to come in and take care of the situation, such as the supervisor. So we communicate that way in everyday life a lot, okay? And we give our emotions the run for the money sometimes when we try to communicate. And you spend a lot of your personal time focusing on relationships, and sometimes there's a significant attachment, and sometimes, like I said, it could be a stranger on the street and you have no attachment to them at all. But if you are dependent on others for your happiness, your security, your emotions, your finances, anything, your safety, if you are looking for others to fill your needs, sometimes they don't get filled. They don't get filled. Sometimes you have somebody who's supportive and encouraging and caring, and you can feel very satisfied in your life. Okay. But there are others who are judgmental, they are critical, they're even aggressive or abusive, and you're in conflict with this person all the time. And you're going to find that sometimes you're doing a bargain with the devil just to keep the peace, and to give yourself some way to please that other person. You want to make them happy. You want them to stay in your life because you think you need them. You don't need them. You don't need them. And taking things personally is usually a byproduct of that bargain. There's a lot of situations where people feel that they aren't good enough to do things, to take care of things themselves, and they put themselves into a position of codependency. And what they're doing is they're giving away their power. Okay? You're giving away your power when you allow somebody to have control over the situation and you do things just to keep the peace. I'm speaking also from experience because I was in an abusive relationship in previous marriages and stuff. I didn't stay married for long because I decided it wasn't a good thing. But even with the dating situations in one's lifetime, sometimes we will either just fall silent and let the other person say what they want to say and not say anything just to keep the peace and let them criticize or do whatever it is that they're doing. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help them. Yes, they're venting, but you have to look at also why are they doing this? Why are they venting? Sometimes it's just because they want to be in control. They just want to be in control. You have to figure out what your truth is, and your truth is going to be actually something outside of what this other person is trying to tell you. They're putting you into a position where they know they can push your buttons. They know what's going to set you off. I used to have people that could do that to me, and they would push my buttons, and they would get me into an argument. And then one day I figured out, you know what? I know what my truth is. I know that this is not real. I know that it's a lie what they're saying, that they're trying to just confront me. And even with my late husband, when we first got married, he was somebody who would just argue with a person and be on the other side of the debate just so that because that's how he was raised. And it got to the point where I'm going, this subject matter, and this subject matter we will not discuss because you want to get into a debate. You want to get into a debate, you go get into a debate with somebody else, because it doesn't matter what somebody else took, what side they took, he would take the other side. And it got to the point where I put that boundary down, and he wasn't allowed to do that. Well, then when I met his family over the years, they were all from New York. They were Jewish. They talked and discussed things very, very loudly. That was normal for them. That was their norm. And they would debate on everything. That was his family. That was his background. That wasn't my family and background. You weren't allowed to debate in my family and background. But that's the way it was. And I had to put some boundaries on how he was to behave with me, and at home was not allowed to do what he did with his family. And eventually he did accept that. But it's hard sometimes, because when you have a partner or a friend or even a non-friend, sometimes they don't accept those boundaries. And so you really have to focus on what the relationship means to you. How heavily invested are you in that individual? Do you always need to be agreeable? Are you always going to not make waves? Are you going to go along in order to keep the peace? What high price are you paying? Okay? If you disagree or challenge them, are you paying a high price? Do you really need their approval? Do you need that person's approval? Is there something that you can do to make them happy, or does nothing make them happy? Are they always going to challenge you? And is it really worth the effort? So are they always going to be unhappy with you no matter what you do? Okay, so you need to focus the interaction by putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Why are they acting the way they are? Why are they acting the way they are? And try to understand the feeling, the thinking, that they are trying to convey to you. They interact with many people. Do they only act this way with you, or do they act this way with everybody? Do they act this way with everybody? Is it their usual way of interacting with people by criticizing them, shaming them, blaming them, finding something wrong with them? Do they do it with everybody? Are they just a nasty, miserable person? There are such people out there. And do they know how to even communicate in a healthy way? Were they raised in this environment that they don't know how to communicate unless they're aggressive or rude? Is it just that they want to be heard? Is it because when they were coming up in their family, they were never heard? Was this the way that it was when they were younger? Was everybody rude and aggressive in their language? Was bullying the only way they could get their way? Okay, was it the only way that they could get their way? And do they have issues with relationships? Did they grow up without boundaries? Were they not able to see things as good or bad, right or wrong? Okay, so you look at a person's way of how they were raised. Okay, don't jump to conclusions too quickly when you are confronted. Maybe it's not about you at all. Maybe it's not about you at all. A lot of times it's about their own perceptions of things, and they project on you. In fact, was it always about them, Okay, what they're conveying to you, is it always about them? Is it always their issues, their needs, and their desires to control you and the situation? So be aware of your sensible spots. Not your sensible. Be sensible, but be aware of your sensitive spots. Be aware of your vulnerabilities, and prepare yourself for when there's an interaction, because they're going to try and draw you in. They're really going to try and draw you in. I mean, my own family growing up, my mother knew what buttons to push. My mother knew what buttons to push, and then I had relationships. In dating and in husbands and friends and family, and people know what buttons to push. How do you react to these things? Can you put a space between you and your reaction? I find now that especially with a lot of people on social media, on texting and phones and other things, if I don't want to talk to the person, I'll say text me, or if I'm busy with family or something, I'll say text me, and I'll get back to you. And if they're insulting, if they are pushing buttons, if they are trying to criticize or whatever it is, I will wait a little bit before I react to that. I create the space, okay? So take time and look at what they are saying, understand who they are, how they're interacting with other people, and take time, rein in your emotions, okay? Rein in your emotions. And even if this is a person who calls you on the phone and wants to talk to you, well, I'm busy right now, I'll get back to you, okay? So prepare yourself, put that space, and you have to have a nice, healthy space before interacting with these people. And if you do interact with them, first take a while. Get your emotions out of the way before you respond to them. Well, I can't, they'll say, I can't understand you because of this and this and this and this, and I don't like the interaction with your family, and I don't like this, and I don't like the fact that you post on Facebook, and this is something I just recently got the other day, and I can't stand the relationship that people know where you are and what you're doing all the time. Well, poo on that. It's basically a situation where a person would like to have more control, would like to alienate. That's not happening. And it's basically, okay, feeling is mutual. I will not be seeing you again. I don't wish to interact with you again. I put down the healthy space. And these are my reasons. And I did it without emotion. I did it because I needed to put out some positive things. So instead of criticizing the person, I put out, I need my own peace. I don't need to be stressed. I don't need to have the drama. I'm seeing other people, blah, blah, blah. And I put out positive things. Instead of criticizing the other person, I put out what I'm doing, that I'm doing positive in my life. And that was my response. It did not get a response back. It cut off the communication because I put out there, I'm a happier person, I'm doing my own thing, and I don't need all this other stuff that you are putting out there. I don't need him pushing buttons. I don't need him putting restrictions down or control issues or anything. So it's just like, this is me, this is you, I'm going on with my life, have a good life yourself. So, and it did not get a response back. So obviously, hopefully, that's the end of that. So when you are ready, respond. Give good clarification as to why. Make sure that your emotions are taking a back seat. Try not to be critical of the other person. It is their fantasy. You got to understand, they are living in their fantasy. They need to have you behave a certain way. Tell them how or what they are saying or doing makes you feel. Okay? And because they may not they may realize, but they may not realize that they're being aggressive, rude, insulting, bullying, and insensitive, that they are being hurtful, and they are not aware of what they're asking of you as being unreasonable. Okay? So, because this is the way that they live in their own dream. their own dream world. They see things through their own dream world as being a certain way. They see things as being their own truth. Their truth is not your truth. Their dream, their world is not your dream. It is not your world, okay? And you need to either suggest to them an alternative situation or break it off. Break it off. And it's hard sometimes if it's family, but you gotta understand that a person is not respecting you, and you need to insist on having your space, okay? And it's hard sometimes with the family. You have to limit your time with family. If it is family, limit your time with them. You do not have to be underneath their thumb at all times. With my own mother, she was one of these miserable persons that if there was nothing wrong with you, she would find or make up something that was wrong with you and point it out. And she didn't care if there were other people there or not. She would do this, okay? She would try to make you uncomfortable, try to make you feel badly and whatever. Got to the point where the other people in the room were going, no, that's not the way it is. No, that's not what's happening. And they started speaking up because they got tired of her crap too. So we came to an understanding that I would only see her at holiday situations. My conversation was very limited, and I tried to remain on the positive side of things. So know that you have to rely on yourself. You have to make yourself the prominent role of what's going on. I see we do have somebody on line 1, Sarah.
Hello?
Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi, it's hard to hear you. You got background noise.
Oh, hold on one second.
Okay.
Is that better at all?
Hello? I don't hear anything now.
Hi, is that better?
Oh, yes, that's better.
Oh, good. I'm actually in a similar situation of what you're talking about, and I did do a lot of the things you suggested, and I waited till I was in a really clear space and could, approach it less emotionally. And it was just a friendship that I loved so, so dearly, but has just triggered me for so long. And most of my talks with close people go well, but this one just did not go over well. And I'm just unaware. I'm trying to understand if this is a healthy relationship to pursue deeply, to continue an intimate relationship with. As a friend, or I'm just not exactly sure what the intentions are.
I have found that in some friendships, if there is something that's continuing to trigger, I try to address the trigger. I've done this even with some of my own friendships, and if the person is in a different place emotionally and with their life, sometimes it's best to cut the relationship, and it's usually, you don't usually have to say anything, you just don't communicate with them anymore. I have found that, and in such relationships, and I've had one one lady I've known for 30 years. When she and I got married a couple years after we had known each other, we'd been very close friends. She married a really asshole, and I married my last husband. And the thing is that she had a situation she needed to take care of. I no longer wished to be part of it, and it was what was triggering her behavior, and her husband's behavior was the situation between them. So the relationship went south for many, many years. She found me about 3 years ago on Facebook again, and she had divorced the asshole, married a very nice gentleman, and wanted to be friends again. So we started communicating again. We are now close friends again, and this has been over a period of 30 years. She's not the only one that had to go on with a different situation in life. My life is different from her life. Her truth was different from mine, and there were some circumstances that needed to be dealt with. Another one was a personal friend who I have had to break the friendship off with 3 times because of her opinions and her criticisms and stuff. And each time it's been a year or more where she had to go deal with her own situation, her own life, and then we would get back together, and it was like we were friends yesterday because whatever it was that was triggering the behavior was gone. So giving yourself some space, sometimes it's necessary. They have to deal with what's going on in their life. You have to deal with what's going on in yours. And then you suddenly communicate again, and those triggers are gone. So it may be a parting of the friendship for a temporary period of time, a week, a month, a few years.
Or is it even possible just to, continue it lightly? Just not at the same depth?
What do you mean by continuing it lightly?
Drawing back, not letting it be so deep, so intimate.
I would try that to see if that would help with the situation, and because the deepness or the intimacy may be stepping on a few toes that you don't even know about emotionally, and triggering some things. So yeah, I would step back. That's withdrawing, not completely cutting the relationship, but withdraw, and while this person figures out where they're at with the relationship.
Right. Okay.
And instead of getting into a full face-to-face confrontation, there are some questions that you can ask, and that is another page into it. But okay, some of the questions you can ask, if there is, what kind of things do they push your buttons on? What are they doing?
Overly analytical of me.
Okay, is that what's something that they do with everybody?
Yeah, and also just feeling like I'm like I can't ever meet her needs.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing I ever give to her is good enough.
Okay.
Not that she doesn't give back, but still just wanting.
Meeting
more
needs.
Than I feel like I can have.
Yeah. Meeting needs is a rough road. They want you to meet their needs because they can't meet their own needs. When I was much younger, I had roommates, and I had a female roommate once, and her idea for suddenly moving out was because I could not meet her needs. I was working 3 jobs, raising a child, and going to school. She wanted me to meet her needs, excuse me. And it's just you can't meet everybody's needs. Sometimes they have to meet their own needs. If it's something social, if it's a social need, then maybe they need to get a bigger group of friends, really. Or they need to not depend on other people. Sometimes even in friendships, we become codependent. So you need to maybe set a little boundary. With my mother's situation, I was taking care of her. I was taking care of my grandmother, who was in a nursing home. I was dealing with my mother's needs, but she was still critical and everything. I was taking her everywhere, and I finally had to deal with my own family needs. My husband had a heart attack, and I had 5 kids at home. So it's just like, okay, I can no longer deal with your needs. You need to look to my sister, look to your husband, find some other way, because I have 5 kids and I have a husband who's ill, and I just, quit right there. So you have to put some of your own needs in front of, and it's of other people's needs. Basically, it's like I need to get on and do my own stuff. I'm busy. They need to either step up and take care of their own needs, or they need to find another circle of people that will help them with that.
Right. Okay, well, thank you so much for your advice.
Okay, thank you for coming online and actually calling in.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Actions of other people. Look at the actions of other people, because sometimes it takes a negative effect on you, and you have to decide whether or not that negative effect, if you want to be the victim, if you want to be, are they just being careless? Are they not knowing that they're hurting you? Are they crashing into you deliberately? with their words, with their actions. So you got to decide not to take things personally anymore. You need to avoid a tremendous amount of suffering, both on your part and on the other person's part. Obviously, the other person is suffering if they're reaching out that way and hurting other people, but they're trying to cause suffering to other people that are around them as well. Misery loves company. Are you going to be a victim? Are you going to be the person who's going to suffer? Sometimes you just have to put your hand up and go, I'm done. I'm done. It's over. It's time that I need to get into other things. I need to move on. And I have other areas in my life that need attention right now. So the problems usually don't really have anything to do with you. They have to do with the other person. Okay, when they are coming at you, are you going to separate yourself from it? Are you going to help the person with their problem, which is not always a good idea, depending on the depth of that problem, or are you going to rise above it? And if you're going to rise above it, you may just have to peacefully walk away from it. And we've been discussing that. People sometimes don't know they're inconsiderate. I went on a very short date last week, just a coffee, and the person, asked the group of us if we would like to go to coffee. It turned out it was just me that went to coffee with him, and sat down and talked. And the thing is that he was most of the conversation. It was mostly about him, what he wanted, what he was looking for, what his past relationships were, that he was retired, that this is his health now, and this is where what he did as a career, and this is what he expects to be doing, and that he's lonely and he's depressed and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting here going, oh my God. And it's just like, okay, I'm not giving out my last name. I'm not giving out my phone number. And it's just like, he's gonna lay his whole life on me at one time and look at me as somebody he's looking for a partner for square dancing. Not my thing. I have arthritis, and square dance music is just not my thing anyway. And he's looking for certain things in a female, and these are the things that his exes did, and it's just like, okay, you have to, decide, do you want to deal with that or do you not want to deal with that? I decided there were several little red flags with that date, and that wasn't going to go any further, and nothing was no information was going to be given other than the fact I have 5 kids, I'm a widow, and that's it. That's it. So it's just like, yeah, you have to consider, and sometimes it's when you first meet a person, what kind of a person is this? Because from the conversation I got about his past relationships, I would not want to go there. I would not want to go there. And another inconsiderate date I can put out there. This was back when I was in my early 20s, and I was a single parent. My daughter was like about 5 or 6 years old at the time, and I went out on a date with a gentleman. He took us to a nice restaurant. He included my daughter, and which was nice. It's a nice thing if somebody's going to include your daughter. But then he proceeded to tell me how I was supposed to raise my child. And I just went, excuse me, do you have any children? Well, no, but this is what you need to do. If I am going to continue to date you, you need to change how you are raising your child. And I said, this is the end of this date. And I said, you can take me home now, and we will not see each other again. So it's just like red flags, real jerks. And when a person is going to try and control the situation, you have to decide with how much of that are you going to put up with. That was a sensitive subject. You do not tell me how to raise my child, especially if you have no children of your own. And it's just like, and he was never apologetic about it. And that's another thing. These people who like to criticize you, they will not be apologetic about it. Okay? Because they don't understand why you can't be what they want you to be. They want you to totally transform your life into something that they want. And it's just like, and even at my age, I'm 60, even at my age, there are still guys out there doing this thing, and there are women that do it too. There are parents that do it, There are even children who will push mom and dad's buttons to get them angry. And the thing is that they're not concerned with your truth. They're only concerned with themselves. And it's not about you, really. It's about everything that's going on in their life. And you have to look at the point of view, where is this hurtful comment coming from? Where is this person coming from? And sometimes it's like you have to disarm them. You acknowledge that, they're coming from a certain point of view. And if you wish to, disarm them, it depends on the person and the situation. Sometimes it's not a good thing. It's just basically walk away from it. But if it's a milder thing where they're pushing a button, it's basically, okay, can you tell me more? What's going on with you? Why are you coming out at me? What is going on with you? How are you feeling right now? What's going on in your life? Okay, and sometimes that'll get them talking, and they may be apologetic about it, but they just may need to talk out the situation that they've got going on, and then then you can ask them, how is it working out for you right now? How is the situation you got going? How is that working out? What would you prefer? And it's not for you to change. Okay. You ask them what they would prefer, whatever the situation that's affecting them, and what would they do to change that situation. Okay, sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down and talking to them. You can't read their mind. You've got to tell them that too. I can't read your mind. They expect you to know everything that they're doing. They expect you to know what they're doing. They expect you to know their every move. And the thing is that you're not a mind reader. That's an very extreme gift to have, a mind reader. But you may know a person up and down, but you can't read their mind, okay? And they will think, well, you should know. You should know. And the thing is that, no, you shouldn't. And you got to tell them that. No, sometimes I need to be told. I shouldn't know. And you've got to remind others that you're in your life, you know what's going on in your life. You need a little more information to know what's going on with them. And would they be comfortable enough to sit down and talk to you about it? Sometimes they are. A lot of times they aren't. So you have to just, prod there and see if they're willing to talk about it. You have to understand their perspective, where they're coming from, and realize that things don't happen to you. They just happen, okay? Sometimes situations just happen, okay? They don't happen on purpose all the time. All right. I have some comments from people before I go on. I'd like to go ahead and get these in. I have from Marilyn. She said a few years ago, after a ride with friends, Marilyn has horses and she goes for horseback rides. One of them asked if I needed help getting my saddle back into the horse trailer. I said, oh no, I can do just fine, which is true. I took it personally and was even a bit offended, even though she thought she was being kind. So here's a different type. Here's a different type of taking things personally. So she says, I took it personally because it made me realize that friends see me as getting old and perhaps frail, whereas I definitely do not see myself that way, nor do I feel that way inside. And I still have no trouble putting my saddle back in my horse trailer. It hurt to realize that other people are starting to see an old woman when inside my soul is still young. So it's a matter of perspective. Okay, the woman who was wanting to help her didn't do it as a criticism, but sometimes it's the reflection that we get. It's about us. Okay, and we take it very, very personally, and you have to sit back and you have to look at the perspective of what's going on. And she realizes that other people are starting to see her physically in a different way than what she feels. Okay, So that's a different point of view on it. So looking at the point of view. Another one is Julie. My sister and I had an argument 2 months ago at her place in California. I was so upset and sick of her bullying that I flew home 2 days earlier than scheduled. I emailed her about a week later, tried to discuss our issues, which go back to our childhood together, but she kept saying mean things to hurt me. Finally, I asked why she treats her friends better than she treats me, and her reply was, because I choose my friends and I love them. And the more she hurts me, the happier she is. So I'm done with her. It's right to step back from a person when they do that. It's right to step back from a person when they do that. I had a similar situation, and sometimes it takes the distance of time and the personal situation. When her friends suddenly leave her, who is she going to turn to? Okay. When my oldest daughter was turning 18, she was hell on wheels, and I threw her ass out when she turned 18. And I said, you think so much more of your friends. Tell them to come get you. Anything you leave behind, I'm going to trash. Okay, it's going in the trash. So take what you want. She took a few bags of stuff of hers, and leave. If you think your friends think more of you than your family, which has raised you your entire life, you are now 18, get out. And her friends and family, not her friend, family, but her friends came and got her. She stayed a week with them. Then my mother, Miss Miserable, decided that she was going to rescue her. And she had her for a month and then said, oh my God, everything you said was true. She thinks more of family, not of family, but of friends. She was sneaking out at night. She was ditching going to college, which my mother had paid for. And she was doing things that my mother did not approve of. So my daughter called me and said, I would like to come home. And she came home, and she had to get a job. She had to pay her grandmother back, and she had to straighten up her life. So when the friends were gone and the rescuer was gone, which was her grandmother, she came back to family. 5 years later, she reevaluated where she was with her friends: in jail, prostitution, drugs, single parent, living in poverty. Her friends, where they were in their life at that time, she turned around and she said, Mom, I'm glad you were there. Okay, so one day her friends are going to desert her, Julie. One day your sister's friends are going to desert her. She's going to try and fall back on family. It's up to you whether or not you want to be there. But for right now, you're done with her. And sometimes that's called tough love. Sometimes that's necessary. Okay, the last one is from Erica. Erica says that when I was younger during the summer, my mom and I would go on our own family type vacations. And at one function, we met up with an old friend. And at a gathering, my mom and her friend would sit at the table making comments about me, my weight, my dad as a kid, my weight. And my dad as a kid, I didn't say anything. If I did, I'd get in trouble for embarrassing her. So at the time, I didn't respond to the derogatory comments. I felt stuck, and I feel that's even with me today. I try to understand, but I truly don't. She would also have lunch with me and then comment about how I need to not eat what I ate, even though she chose the place. Okay, and then in the parking lot, she would start making comments again. Yeah, we've discussed that already. You've got to look at where she was coming from. How was she raised? How was the family interacting? Was there problems with her own parents when she was growing up? and you did what you did what you could as a survival thing. You stayed silent about it because it would cause more to come down on you as a child, and being told you were disrespectful and everything else. We're going to get into a little of that because as a child, we are victimized in some cases. In some cases, we are victimized. And there are certain behaviors that we take with us and continue to respond to as an adult. And if we don't wish to carry on the way we were treated, we ourselves have to go and be the change. And sometimes it's, again, distance. I'm so done with that behavior, distance. Boundaries have to be set. And it's unfortunate that that thing goes on. So I was disowned by my mother twice. And I was also a runaway. And because I wanted to get away from her and the way she treated me. And I finally, as an adult, had to be estranged from her. Okay. And like I said, family functions only. If she didn't have anything nice to say, I would walk away from it. I would be polite. And when the function was over, there was no other further communication. Sometimes you have to do that with people that they like to push buttons. They like to push buttons. They're unhappy with their own life. They are miserable in their own life. Nothing makes them happy. And they feel that this is the only way that they can get their own personal happiness is by taking yours away from you. And there are people who take everything personally. They take everything personally. And it doesn't have to be words. It could be an action. It could be that's how they relate to you. Okay? You may even have to look at a person, and if they don't like the way you're looking at them, and I've had that happen. I've felt a smack in the face before from a stepfather. But why am I getting hit? Well, I don't like the way you look. Okay, so and it's the things that they experience in the world around them. They think they have to have the control. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the victim triangle. There's the victim on one end of the triangle, the rescuer, and then there's the aggressor. And these places don't stay permanently in place, okay? You can be the victim, and you can see another person who's being a victim, and you can try and rescue them. Well, then in the eyes of another person, you're the aggressor. You're causing the problem. So it goes around and around. The aggressor can become the victim. Oh, woe is me, because you can't behave properly, or you're not doing as I say, so it's causing me harm. So the aggressor will suddenly put themselves in the place of the victim. There's a person that'll come in and try and rescue the victim, and then suddenly become the aggressor, or suddenly become the victim themselves because they're not doing it right. So it just goes around and around. It's a drama triangle is what it is. Victim, aggressor, rescuer, and they never stay the same. They always move around. So you can be in one position and then it will move into another because emotions are being played upon, buttons are being pushed, and people are taking things personally, okay? It's taking things personally. And you have to understand that there are two sides to everything. The views are always going to be different. Consequences will sometimes be the same because the people either will not change their point of view, or you can't pull yourself away from it. So it's a very hard thing to get away from. It's that drama triangle. And people may feel like they have no control over the whole process. And when you have no control over the process, it's usually because somebody else has an agenda. You have to be able to set a boundary. If you can't set the boundary, walk away from it, be done with it. If you're an adult, get away from it. I know as a kid I took off. I suffered the consequences later. but it did make a statement. It did make a statement. So you have to also look at what's going on with their ego mind. What's going on with their ego mind? Because when people take it personally, it's their ego. It's always in the ego. Okay, they have external triggers. They have catalysts that start things up, and they've experienced so much in their life that it's become the norm. They think it's normal to act this way, to respond this way. And the thing is that you have to be able to stand up and break the pattern. Okay, break the pattern. Childhood. A child does not have boundaries, and they are. Unless somebody encourages them to have boundaries, it's going to allow an abusive situation to continue. Okay, the person will think that they have no choice in the matter. Okay, and that's where the caretakers have to be looked at, maybe by an outside source, especially if there's a lot of abuse going on. There are people who cannot differentiate from what they are experiencing, and that's where sometimes you have to set the boundaries. The words and actions of the other person had an effect on them, sometimes as a child, and it's hard to break how a child was raised, because sometimes when they get around that person that did the abuse, their emotional age, even though they are an adult, their emotional age will revert back to being the child that they were. And certain associations will just fire off things. So you need to be aware of people who are going to challenge you, and look at your own self-acceptance, look at your own behavior. You have to understand other people's behavior is not your behavior. Okay, if somebody is going to hand you their emotional poison, it does not mean that you have to take their emotional poison. Okay, and taking things personally puts you out as prey. It puts you out as prey for predators, and you can hook your they can hook your attention. Okay, they will. They see you. You're vulnerable. They're going to put your their hook into your attention, into your energy, into your being, into your soul, whether it be spiritually, whether it be emotionally, whether it be physically, verbally, however they are going to do it. They're going to feed on your response. They're going to feed on your response. So when they start doing their critical opinions, don't take the poison. So put a space between you and them, however it happens to be. If it has to be for a day, an hour, a week, a month, a year, more, forever, don't take their poison. They live in their own dreamland. It's not your dreamland. They have their own mind of how things are. It's different from the world that you live in, and realize that. Then you also have to see people as they are. Without taking it personally, okay? They are not you, and you cannot be hurt by what they say or do, even if others lie to you. If you know that they are not you, okay? It's if they are lying, it's because they are afraid you are going to discover that they are not perfect. And they aren't. If they are pushing all your buttons, if they are creating a lot of turmoil in your life, it's because their life is not perfect. They are not perfect. So they are going to try and find imperfection in other people, whether it's minor or major. And you need to just understand it's not you. It's not about you, even though they try to make it about you. You need to make yourself immune to their opinions. They are projecting their reality. They are projecting their dream. You have to make yourself immune to them. Walk away, get space between. If you react, that's what they're looking for. They are looking for that energy of a negative reaction. And they're going to feed on it, and you are giving them strength, and you are giving them your power when you do that. You do not need to be a victim of needless suffering. It's not about you, okay? Even though they're trying to make it about you, they're trying to make it their power, because that's the only way that they feel powerful. If they have control over something other than their own life, which they have no control over. They think they control their own life, but obviously something in their life is very much out of control if they think they have to control another person. Your truth is personal to you, and your truth is yours and yours only, okay? And your point of view reflects what is personal to you. Nobody else has your truth. Everybody has their own truth. And everybody has their own opinion as to what is true to them. So what you need to do is find your own truth, embrace your own freedom by not allowing other people's opinions, criticisms, and not taking it personally, okay? By not taking it personally, you are getting your own freedom. No spell can affect you. No opinion can affect you, regardless of how strong they think it may be. If you don't take it personally, it cannot affect you, okay? It cannot affect you. If you love, you will be happy with your own life. Find your own love. Love yourself. Love the people who are very close and intimate with you. And transform your life, okay? Your own life. Love and respect yourself above anybody else, and make yourself immune. Ignore the other person's opinions, and don't be judgmental of yourself. Don't allow those opinions to sink into you. Okay, that's all I have for today, and I will see you next week.
You're listening to AchieveRadio.com. A new drummer for a new awakening.